Right. We're on.
You worked it out now? Okay then.
Yeah. I had to press a button.
Fucking hell. And Love Island taken out of you. You couldn't get your headphones on. I brought an intro and everything to be really
as well, so I'm fucking sorry. I'm away with the fairies. Go on.
Okay, now I brought an intro and everything. After 4 weeks of fantastic football, what a civilised way to finish the European Championships. There were people sticking flares in their arse, racists rearing their monolithic heads, and footballers calling out politicians for stoking the flames. Away from the football, Richard Branson, who was asking for handouts from the government, finally fucked off into space. And today, Maggie Thatcher fanboy Darren Grimes has been trending on Twitter for having a crafty wank. We'll get to the football very, very soon, but I want to ask the big question. When is a wank not crafty? Joe.
Ooh. I guess if it's your job, then you might have to do it on display. But generally speaking, the craftiness is part of the ritual of it all, isn't it? Keeping it under wraps.
Yeah.
That's one of the key tenets of it for me. One of the best bits, if you will, is getting away with it. Otherwise, I think I'd lose all momentum. So yeah. Keep wanks crafty. That's what I say.
That's a t-shirt for you. Keep wanks crafty. I live in a house with 3 kids and a wife. And if I get away with one now, I run out like fucking Jurgen Klinsmann doing fucking flying on the coast. Fucking shit. James, how about you? Living with your parents still? Yeah.
No, I have a shower straight afterwards, man. That's it. I'm not pissing about.
You have a shower afterwards?
Do
Yeah.
you have a cigarette as well?
No.
In the shower.
Glass of wine.
No, but you got to
How was it for you, darling?
Right.
You're only young, but I'll message you get.
Well, he does it hung upside down like a bat in a cave. So that's why.
Get a sock, lad. Fucking hell.
No.
No. Okay.
Can't do that, man. You got to keep it clean.
Jeez.
Jay, what did you? Fucking hell. There's a pandemic, man. I can't be wasting toilet paper and fucking knocking one out. Jay, what did you make of Darren Grimes and his reaction to somebody outing him as being the crafty wanker of his high school?
It's what they call, it's like the Barbara Streisand effect, I think they call it, isn't it? Where you draw attention to something with your reaction to it. You remember when like they started, because she drew attention to pictures of her house or something, and then no one knew about it until she pointed out that these pictures were out there and they needed taking down. And I think it's with him, his reaction has created the story, because, you know, I'm sure all of us have had a modicum of trolling in our times on socials. I know I have. And it's like, you either mute or just physically ignore and it goes away. But when you start replying and then do it in a way that is just like so outraged that it's like, I'm going to contact my lawyers. It's like, right, okay, something's going down here. And this has touched the nerve. And I think that's the sort of thing where it's like, if someone says you used to have a wank under the desk at school, I'd be like, well, I'd say, all right, yeah, fair enough. But first, after that, I'd say, I'm not. And he'd be like, right, whatever, yeah, okay. But he was like getting so angry and so like, I'm going to contact my lawyers, I'm going to do this. And also, you know, does he even have a lawyer? Doesn't he live at home with his mum and dad? I doubt he's got a lawyer. So it just seemed really stupid. And obviously, as what happens, the messages get screenshotted, they get tweeted. Because he's such a hateful figure, everyone piles on it. And, you know, there is a sort of school of thought of it's bullying, it's out of order, it's all this, that, and the other. But I think the guy's a complete dickhead and a scumbag, and I've got no sympathy for him anyway.
Yeah, brings it on himself. Joe, what did you make of it?
Well, yeah, talking about the Barbara Streisand thing, Jay, I didn't even know who he was until this all came out. My first exposure to this man, whether that's, you know, been living under a rock or whatever, is him denying so fervently that he's ever done a wank at school and he was known as the crafty wanker that everyone knows he did. So, you know, fair enough. That is the only thing I know about him. That's it. And I scrolled down his timeline long enough to realize I should probably mute him. I muted him and I moved on. But like you said, if you hadn't have protested that much, no one would have even thought it was true. No one would have ever seen that tweet where someone was saying it. But yeah, fantastic. It's just a great way to write yourself, isn't it? No, never did that. Go away. Leave my house. I'm calling my lawyers. That's the end of that. It's not true anyway. See you later. Slamming the door. Oh, he's someone who never did that. Well done, mate.
You've come in to Darren Grimes, excuse the pun, at a time where that was peak Grimes. It doesn't get any better than that. It's all downhill from there, isn't it? Because he is a bit of a nasty so and so. But James, do you think there's any sort of sympathy, like Jay was saying, regarding the sort of the bullying? Do you have any sort of sympathy, even regardless of what he said? No. Okay.
If you're a twat, you're a twat. Like when Thatcher died, I don't think many people were upset, were they? They were celebrating. It's the same sort of thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Really.
Put it all together.
Yeah,
it's things, it's stuff that happens.
You know, one man's wank is another head of state's death. And I've always said that.
That famous saying.
No, but right, you get my point though, right? Thatcher dying, right? Not someone dying, right? Not necessarily a nice thing, but everyone was like, ding dong, the witch is dead. Tried to get it #1 in the charts, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of thing. If you've been a dick, if you've been racist, if you've been hateful, if you've done all this other stuff, then you kind of bring it upon yourself. It's like karma, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. The funny thing is, Joe was saying that he's, never been exposed to Darren Grimes until now. I blocked him a few. I can't remember what it was, a little while ago, just because he's so hateful. He's got nothing nice to say. He's always going after people that I care about and I like Marcus Rashford, and other people. He's just far right, just idiot. And I thought, you know what? I don't need that in my life. I don't need that on my timeline. I don't, it doesn't interest me, and it's just life's too short, sort of thing.
And you can tell he's really upset as well that he didn't get on GB News.
Yeah. Oh, mate, this is another thing. He's just constantly banging on about how wonderful GB News is, and I think eventually he was like a guest there once, wasn't he, or something. But like you say, he didn't get a presenting job, which he's obviously coveting. But I blocked him. But still, I still saw what Crafty wank Darren Grimes trending. That doesn't stop me seeing that, and I still saw loads of people posting the screenshots. And I just think, this is the guy that he's such a hypocrite as well. Me and Scotty, I don't even remember, about a year ago we were talking about him on this podcast because he interviewed the historian. What's his name? I forget his name.
Oh, yeah.
And the historian was racist about black people, and then Darren Grimes didn't challenge him on it, and then did this sort of apology afterwards, saying, "Oh, I didn't hear what he said, and this is my, I'm new to interviewing, and all this other shite." And it's just basically, you let him get away with it because he probably agreed with it. So I've got no sympathy for him, and it saddens me a little bit when people do go, "Oh, we shouldn't sink to their level," and I think, fuck off. Why not?
Yeah, definitely. I think most of us are in agreement with that. Let's start from the end of the football then, or the beginning of the football. What did you actually make of the behaviour before the game? Was you surprised, Joe? I mean, I wasn't surprised by the sort of drunken lariness and bottles being smashed. The arse flare completely got me. I wasn't expecting that in the slightest, but everything else was sort of, it was predictable.
Yeah, the arse flare was good. That was my favourite bit of the night, probably.
That's like the highlights reel. The highlights reel of Euro on the DVD.
Yeah, that made it at the end. Do you know when BBC did their sort of closing montage? He was on there with it hanging out. It was. But yeah, there's sort of but people rushing into the stadium and getting in, and extra people going in, and seemingly the news was it today about Harry Maguire's dad potentially having broken ribs or something from people pushing in and getting in with him. So obviously some of that you think, well, again, you kind of expect a little bit of it, but obviously you don't want people getting hurt. And that's not good. And especially with COVID, there are some people who are probably in that stadium who have done tests, who have made a specific point of maybe even if they've had both jabs, they're still particularly vulnerable, that will have made sure they've done everything they can in the week leading up to that game, that they've got in early, done what they can, and then someone pushing in who's obviously not caring for the rules. Generally speaking, you see that sort of thing at football, but especially during COVID, part of me thinks maybe there's a better way to do that. But yeah, mostly predictable, really. And then on the field stuff, I think, we're all sort of sick of talking about it now, aren't we? It was upsetting and difficult. I mean, I see your jumper there. Maybe you weren't quite so upset.
Not in the slightest, mate.
But typical bandwagon jumper.
Yeah, exactly. But he's literally a bandwagon jumper.
Yeah.
He had an England top on in the first half.
Really.
Yeah. Jay, what did you think about the way it was policed? Though, when you look at, we've covered the protests over the last sort of 12 months, or the Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, the tinfoil lot who were protesting. And then you look at the Sarah Everard when there was a protest about that and the arrests. Do you think there's a level of hypocrisy? I can't say the fucking word. Hypocrisy. Yeah, I can do it. I'm there. Against how it was policed at Wembley compared to the sort of the peaceful protests in the last summer.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got to be honest myself and not be a hypocrite or hypocrist. And say, I've tried to jib into Wembley before, so I'm not going to sit here and be all sanctimonious about it and say they shouldn't be trying to get in. Fans are going to try and get into a cup final, especially if you're charging people £500 a ticket, letting the likes of Tom Cruise and Kate Moss, who I'm sure had all the, have been home and away with England for years, and they can all get tickets, and you're saying, no one else can, and there's limited number, and also not only is the limited number, the numbers are going to be extortionate, the prices are going to be dear, and then they're on the black market for silly money. People are going to try and get in, and you have to police it properly. When we went there in 2011 for the Champions League final, there was an element of that where it was a similar thing where certain people were trying to get in from certain entrances, and they clamped down pretty quickly, and then there was extra police and stuff.
Well, fans trying to get through the disabled toilets.
That was exactly it, and some did. I know there was a lad who used to write for the blog that I used to edit, and him and his brother ended up getting in because I think it was an element of what you saw, like loads of people would get in, and then loads of them would get shut out. All they do is shut you out, and then you try again, and then now and again, one or two of you get away with it, because there's just not enough stewards and police and stuff to camp it. But the difference was then as well. I'm not just saying this because United fan, but no United fans were stopping other fans trying to get in. No United fans were chinning them as they were getting through the door, going like, some sort of Keystone Cop attitude of I'm going to stop these fans getting in without a ticket and start beating them up. I don't get where that came from. But in answer to your question, Scotty, yeah, I think they just. They didn't police it properly, did they? Because you shouldn't be relying, or members of the public shouldn't be getting involved in that sort of thing, or have to get involved in that sort of thing. I'm not saying they should, I don't agree with that. But they shouldn't be having stewards who, don't forget, these stewards, they're not police people. They're not police officers. They're paid an okay wage, nothing special, to just basically point people towards their seats and collect tickets. And that's mainly what your job is as a steward. I've done stewarding. You're not there to sort of constantly fight people, which is what they were expected to do. So there should have been extra police there. And especially when you see it, when you see women sat down at a vigil for a woman who was murdered by a police officer being dragged away from a vigil and thrown into the back of a van, where you've not got enough police for the biggest game this country's hosted since the 1966 World Cup final, then it does seem a little bit stupid from the police or the politicians who are in charge, or Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, whoever you want to point the finger at. It just wasn't policed properly.
Exactly. I mean, how can you not expect that to happen? Especially after everyone's been locked up for last 18 months, and there was limited tickets and stuff. How do you not prepare for that? And the amount of there was WhatsApp groups that were going around, weren't they, and Telegram groups, and people were sort of giving ideas about how to sneak in, and stewards were getting like £200 here and there to let them through the gates. And like I said, they're not well paid. You know what I mean? So you lace a couple of pounds, you can get through. I mean, James went to Wembley at the Euros for Italy versus Spain, and it wasn't hard to get in, really, was it, James? Once
no,
we watched the penalties. We stuck into Wembley.
The security wasn't that great for that game. I mean, it was literally just we got. Well, I don't want to say how it happened, but essentially there was a lift into Club Wembley, and once you got down that lift into the area, you just walked straight in. There was no one saying, "I don't think you should be in here." There was a guy on the door at the bar that was stopping people, but there was no one stopping you from going to your seats. It was just just walk straight in, sound. But I mean,
nice cushion seats, weren't they, James?
Yeah, cup holders as well, right next to the penalties.
Well done, lads. To pay is to fail.
People I don't know why the guy in the UEFA suit in the lift with us didn't ask any questions as to why someone wearing tracky bottoms and a coat from lost property from school that was given to him 4 years ago with a hole in the pocket was stood next to him going in the same lift.
Yeah,
but I find the whole thing pretty fascinating, the whole sort of moral panic around jibbing, because a lot of the journalists, they're not fans, they don't understand the desire to get into a stadium, and if it's £400 or £500, then obviously people are going to try and get in for free. I think the people should be focusing more on the violence itself rather than the act of jibbing.
And then there were two. Oh no, we're all back.
Sorry, I don't
know. James is gone.
It's like fucking blankety blank.
Forgive me, I don't know what happened there. I just got a message it had gone off. Let me add him back.
Yeah,
we can edit that bit out. We've all moved around, I think.
There we go.
So yeah, apologies for that. I think there was a bit of a gremlin in the machine. But you were saying about James. You were saying something about a lost property coat, I think, before you were rudely interrupted.
Yeah, my coat. Well, the coat that I was wearing on Tuesday night was given to me in lost property at school 4 years ago, and it had a hole in the right-hand pocket, and I was wearing that with tracky bottoms, and I was in a lift with a guy wearing a UEFA suit, and he didn't take the time to question as to why he was in the same lift as me and Dave.
I just need to ask though, why were you wearing a coat that you were given in lost property 4 years ago at school? I'm not knocking it. Everyone's,
nice
we're all
coat.
skinned.
You know what I mean? It's just
like
I've got two coats. I've got my Nigeria coat, which I wear
obviously
on occasions, and then I've got the other coat. It's this black coat, does the job fine. And like, I don't understand people spending loads of money on a coat. If you've got a coat that works and fine, why do you need to get another one? You know what I mean?
Works. It keeps the rain from touching my skin directly, therefore it works. There's a hole in it, not sort of tamper with the overall functionality of the coat.
It's not broken. It's just
you could argue that pocket is broken, though, couldn't you? Because
do you got anything in it?
It's fully
no, but
functional.
I can just use the other pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Is that going to be the same? So if a sleeve falls off, it's okay.
We've got
it still works.
50% of the sleeves on this coat work.
You wouldn't be able to tell it was from lost property though.
No, but that's not the
that's the benchmark, isn't it?
Here's the question. Do you know whose coat it was originally?
Yeah, because at the end, no one took it, and they said, "Right, if anyone takes this coat, otherwise we're going to give it to the charity shop. Does anyone want it?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll have it. Fine."
Right.
And now that
didn't
coat's
steal
been
it.
to Club Wembley, and
no one's suggesting you stole it. Again, this is getting a bit Grimesy, isn't it? This whole debacle. I didn't steal it. She was awake when I took the jacket. She was. Don't worry about where I got it from. That's fine. That's not in question. It was given away.
Right, and I continue.
Please do.
So what I was saying was, I find the moral panic fascinating, actually, around people jibbing into football stadiums, because when it's 400 or 500 quid, obviously people are going to try that because they're priced down. I think a lot of the journalists don't really understand why people are so desperate to get into the stadium, because they're not fans. So I think the focus should be more on the violence that happened beforehand and the whole sort of nature of England fans, which is why I always seem to distance myself from England fans in England at major tournaments, because that sort of stuff was just inevitable. I just knew it was going to happen because there was too many people there. A lot of people that follow England are from smaller clubs. They don't know really how to behave themselves because they don't really follow their side in Europe very often. So when England get to a major tournament, they get very excited, they get too drunk, and then that type of thing just is inevitable.
Yeah, and then when you look at the World Cup bid for 2030, is it UK and Ireland?
UK and Ireland,
that bid is? The Irish must be pissed off then with all that behaviour, because that's got to be, up for debate now. Do you think Boris is going to sort of make a stand or do anything about it to sort of ease your way for his concerns, Joe?
I don't know, because let's not pretend that every World Cup there's ever been hasn't had violence. Like when you get a load of predominantly blokes, drinking and having fun, and there's going to be a bit of fighting, a bit of this, a bit of that, and that's happened at pretty much every World Cup. It's obviously not huge, large scale chaos, but that wasn't what we saw the other night anyway. It was sort of pockets of fighting and shit. But I don't think that the UEFA go into, or FIFA go into awarding these World Cups and stuff thinking, well, which country is the safest? We're not going to get any violence, etc., etc. There's a lot of stigma around South Africa, and most of that ended up being unfounded in the end. It pretty much, turned out well. Same with Brazil, same with Russia. Every single time a World Cup is given somewhere, people say, oh, well, what about the violence? What about the crime? What about this? And usually things worked out well because they do up the police, like you were saying before. They need more people there to watch over things, maybe, because you're going to have groups of tens or hundreds of thousands of fans from different countries. But I think if that is done properly and it's policed properly and people are separated or kept in the way that they're meant to do, these things are going to happen at a certain amount. But I don't think, hopefully, that UEFA aren't going to look at that and think, well, we never thought there'd be any fighting at a football game or whatever, because like you said, James, especially with England fans a little bit more, maybe that does happen a little bit. But I don't think that's unique to England by any means. I think anywhere you go, that's going to be the case.
I think England fans always manage to find a way to embarrass themselves more. I think for me anyway. I just always think it's England fans that always seem to find a way to do it in quite a spectacular fashion, especially the first major tournament final since 1966, and yet it turns into a situation whereby people can't get into the stadium because people are just dicks and ruin it for a lot of people.
I think So no, go on, Scotty, mate.
No, I was going to say it's like if there was top trumps of fucking drunken dickhead fans, then England would be, England have 100 on that card, wouldn't you? You wouldn't really put them against another nation. Go on, Jay, you were saying.
I was just going to say, like Joe makes a good point about, when FIFA are looking at the World Cup bids, me, you, Scotty, went in Brazil, and I went to South Africa as well, and especially South Africa. I remember there was dire warnings and don't do this and don't do that, and I was working over there for like 6 weeks, and we were just sort of, just treating it like an holiday, didn't really take any precautions, and everyone was double friendly. But what FIFA, I think, look at is not necessarily what's gone on or what's happened in that country, but what you promised to do for the World Cup. So in South Africa, they promised to sort out the shanty towns and the violence, and they did. There was, they literally was bussing people out of the cities and into the middle of nowhere and leaving them there for the summer. In Brazil, they obviously made a lot of promises, some of which they didn't really keep up with. If we saw some of the infrastructure that was there, but a lot of it is the promises. And I think the one so that's one thing. I think if England or UK and Ireland can promise we're going to have this many police, we're going to do this, we're going to build these stadiums or whatever, then FIFA take that into account. And also, I think the one difference though with everything is, when I was in South Africa, the South African fans didn't cause any trouble, were so friendly. I remember watching the opening game when they drew. And they were celebrating the draw like they'd won the World Cup. They were just so happy that they did not embarrass themselves with that first result and got a draw. Brazilian fans are not exactly the worst. Even the Russian fans weren't going around smashing up pubs and being, sort of hooligans. It's hooligans for that word. But England do have that problem, and it's weird when we were to have that World Cup. That's something that perhaps FIFA would look at that they might not look at with other countries, is the behaviour of our fans. Because our fans aren't like the South Africans, the Brazilians, the Germans in 2006. You know what I mean? There's something about the England fans where we do have this reputation, and we do it. We've had bans and stuff in Europe and all that sort of get up. We have this reputation of going around and causing dramas and smashing up things, and just that's the sort of the one worry I'd have if I was looking at an England bid. It's not the fact that can we police it, or can we make the promises that we need to make in terms of infrastructure and stadiums and all that sort of stuff. It's if FIFA look at it and go, England fans are just going to be on the rampage and they're going to be unbridled, and look what they did last time they had a tournament. I know we didn't have the whole tournament, but we had a lot of it for the Euros.
But I think maybe I'm a bit rose-tinted glasses for nostalgia. I don't remember it being like that in 1996, though, in England. I don't remember it being like that.
Well, there was a little bit, wasn't there? And when we got knocked out, like there was a little bit of kicking off and all sorts in Trafalgar, was it, and parts of London. But you're right. I mean, 96 was, as a tournament, it was a great tournament. There was games at Old Trafford. There was
as a tournament. Actually, I think it's as a whole. A lot of people look at it with rose-tinted glasses because
I know you're going to talk about the football. Sorry,
the football itself was poor.
No. The atmosphere at the stadiums, the way people treat each other. There was a lot of games at Old Trafford. They all went well. I get where you're coming from with the
a lot of empty seats as well. I mean, Hillsborough had a few games. There
wasn't any trouble though. It was like it was a carnival atmosphere. It was a friendly atmosphere. It did feel like that sort of thing. Whereas, the sort of more recent scenes we've seen. And even then, I don't know, you guys were at the games before the final, was there much trouble before the final, or was it just the final where it all popped off?
No, the only sort of issue I thought was a bit moody was when I met you, James, at half-time, and them England fans who were next to us, and they were very patriotic, and they were saying a bit sort of some untoward words about Italian people, and I was like, I'm not getting involved in this conversation.
He was wearing a Colchester United shirt, so I think, as we all know, they've got quite a bit of a weird fan base. So do you remember when they came to Old Trafford?
Yeah, I remember them. They kicked off
with a weird fan base.
Yeah, they kicked off after the fan cams. They came over. and started causing a bit of drama with me
Okay,
and McCall. And it was a storm in a teacup. It wasn't like it was proper kicking off. There was I remember they pushed us and we turned around and there was a big guy stood near us. And I thought he was with the Colchester fans and he was massive. And I'm thinking, oh, fucking hell, this goes off now. He's going to 1 hour me. Do you know what I mean? Because it was getting to that point of like, he was having it. And he wasn't, he was a red. And I think he just chinned one of them and they all just scattered. And it was like, that was the end of that. But yeah, it was really weird because they were causing all sorts of dramas in the ground. It was like, there was a few of them doing like, Munich chants and stuff. And it was like, Colchester, we've got no rivalry with you whatsoever.
Yeah.
What is going on? You know what I mean? It was all very weird.
He was never right because they went before us trying to get into Club Wembley. And it was him leading his pack of like 6, 7. They weren't getting in, right? So we waited instead for them to go up and obviously not get in, and then we were straight in because they basically messed it up for themselves.
Yeah, use them as a decoy. Right, we'll move away from Wembley and we'll look at what happened after Wembley, because as soon as Marcus Rashford missed the penalty in the final, I went on Twitter and I said I just knew straight away, and I think most of the general public expected what was going to happen because our black centre forward missed the penalty. And then the inevitable racism happened on social media, and then the outpour from that. What do you reckon about Joe? Were you surprised in any way, shape, or form that the trolls took to Twitter in the way they did?
No, obviously not. I think, like you said, we sort of all expected it. You almost sat watching it thinking, what's going to happen if this goes wrong? Almost, you sort of preempting it. And then obviously it happened. You see the screenshots, so you go and go to people's Instagrams and social media, or you just search their name on social media and you can, see the shit people are saying. And it is obviously sad that you can sort of expect it and wait for it, and then it arrives and you see it coming in, you feel sort of let down but not surprised kind of thing. Yeah, it's just shit, isn't it? I think one thing that it did show, though, is obviously how much of a minority I think those people are. If you look at the tweets, the responses, the sort of overwhelming percentages of shit like that to people saying positive things about these lads as players, as people, as role models, everything, it's 99.9% in favor of the positive stuff, which some of that people come out and say these things because of the bad things that have been said. But I think overall it's good to show you that, for the one person that's spraying or defacing the Rashford mural, obviously, there's 1,000 people coming out and protesting and writing messages of support and kindness. And I think that's good to see. But obviously the other side of it is just predictable, awful shit, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if anything, if you're taking a silver lining, especially if you're an England fan, was the reaction to the racism, and it does show the sort of the greater side of the population, especially in Manchester here, the amount they've rallied around Marcus Rashford, but also Saka and Sancho as well, does show that it's the minority. Jay, what did you make of Tyrone Mings' reaction to Priti Patel? Because I don't think anyone in this podcast is a massive Tyrone Mings fan. Due to the way he tends to play football. But, the way that he went at Priti Patel was admirable, to say the least, Jay.
He's my favourite player now. I've always rated Tyrone Mings. He's an absolute Rolls Royce of a defender. He's like Baresi in his prime. No, I've always thought he was a bit of a mindless thug. And, I've got it wrong because he's not mindless. He's actually got something about him. I love the fact he went after her because he's right. We've seen it so many times during this tournament with people flip-flopping. Boris Johnson wouldn't condemn the booing towards the players taking the knee. Priti Patel said that it was people's right to boo, and then was, posing for pictures, celebrating goals and saying stuff about, get behind the boys and all this other sort of drivel. So I was buzzing when I saw what he did because I thought it needed to be said. And it's good to see that, a lot of players, the thing is, right, we've seen it and we saw what he did, and we've seen it in the House of Commons at the time recording was today in Prime Minister's Questions, where I think someone shouted out at Keir Starmer or Tyrone Mings is a Labour Party member, and he's like, what? That's not the reaction you should be going for. But there's all this thing about, footballers shouldn't play politics and all this other stuff, and made me think, like with Marcus, people say, oh, you know, there was those tweets going around, one there, or those messages, sorry, from, I think it was Summer Elphick, another politician I've never heard of until she started slagging off Marcus, saying, oh, he maybe should practice penalties and staying out of politics. And I think a lot of the time is people conflate the idea of campaigning and politics. Like, Marcus actually stays out of politics. Now that might sound crazy. I know people are going to go, no, he doesn't. He made the government do a U-turn twice. He got free school meals. But if you look at it from a sort of political point of view, he worked with Boris Johnson. He's never been massively pro-Labour or I'm a Keir Starmer fan or anything like that. He's been more about, I want this issue resolving. Yeah. And if you remember Therese Cofer, who's one of the most vile pieces of shit on the planet, and has somehow managed to get herself in the cabinet, probably because she is a vile piece of shit. When she went after him because he tweeted about people going to get the water cut off, and she said, well, that's not true. And he replied in such a reasonable and mature way. And he's like, I noticed this is the only time you've addressed one of my tweets. It's not about, because she's a Liverpool fan as well. This isn't about our teams or anything like that. I just want to work together to try and resolve this. Yeah. He's always risen above it. And in many ways, he's left Starmer with as much egg on his face as he's left Boris Johnson, because people keep referring to Marcus Rashford as the leader of the opposition and doing the things that Keir Starmer should be. So it's not just these footballers delved into politics. They haven't in that way. They've actually just found an issue of don't fucking racially abuse us. Or with Marcus, it was a bit more than that. Or with Jordan Henderson, it was trans rights. A transsexual went to the game and got abused or whatever. Or no, sorry, didn't get abused. Was like, I felt like I could go there for the first time. And Jordan Henderson says, exactly, you should go there and be yourself. That's not really, for me, playing politics. That's just being a decent human being and using your platform to raise awareness around an issue that needs raising awareness for. Yeah. So this whole thing of they're being politicians or they're playing politics or they're not. And then, this is probably the most political it's got because Tyrone Mings has actually gone after a politician, properly gone after him. And you think, people are just so busy trying to make it about that and it's not. But he was right to do that because it needed saying, we've had all this nonsense about Marcus Rashford should practice penalties and stop being a politician. He isn't. The England team should stop being Marxists. Yeah, I'm sure they're all sat at home reading Das Kapital instead of fucking practicing penalties. Do you know what I mean? Come on, do me a favour. So it's just people just not, using facts or, reality to make an argument. They're just going, well, these are all communist Marxists or whatever. They're all getting involved in politics. And they're not. And I think that, when you try and do that and then say, oh, I'm supporting the team, then the team's got a right to call you out for it.
It's all just fake, overused shit as well. That, oh, instead of doing this, do that. Like, get another put down. Why don't you focus on this instead of politics? Like, what is that? Just the cheapest, most overused crap ever. Also,
and people act it's an excuse to be racist as well, isn't it? People go, "Oh, it's Marxist." It's not fucking Marxist. It isn't Marxist. It's not.
You've got like Gareth Southgate. All the players who've done interviews have said it's nothing to do with that. This is why we're doing this. This is why we just want people to stop racially abusing other people and ourselves and treat us as equal, not as better than anyone, but equal. They've said that, and one thing I think we can all agree on is this group of players and this manager, regardless of what you think of them, whether they play for your team or tactically or whatever, they're intelligent. They know what they're doing. So when they say this is why we're taking the knee, I take the word for it that they know that is the reason. They're not just fucking confused or making it up. And yet people don't want to have that. They don't want to listen to that. And they want to go, no, actually, they're lying. Do you know, it's like when Sky had that fucking idiot on from England FC, whatever that is.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
I've never heard of it before or since, by the way. England FC. How is that a thing, right? And he sat there with his sunglasses on like Ollie fucking Mers going, well, why doesn't anyone explain to us what they're taking the knee for? And the interview's going, well, they have. Gareth Southgate's told you what it is. Why haven't the FA? And he goes, well, the FA have issued a statement. Oh, well, have they though? Well, yeah, they fucking have. What do you mean, have they though? Yes. Yeah. It's there to fucking read, you idiot. And it's like, why are you giving these people a platform?
What I was going to say was on GB News as well, the day after, they had the guy from Kick It Out on there. And still, even then, they were going for the, Black Lives Matter, it is a divisive movement. It is very divisive and people don't like players taking the knee. And it's just, they don't want to listen. They don't even want to hear people say, no, it's nothing to do with that, because they're so set in their opinion that they don't want to change it.
And I don't even think half of it is their opinion. I think the best way to try and combat something which they see as a problem, which is taking the knee, is let's pretend there is loads of animosity and we don't quite know what's going on. What does it mean? Is it this? Is it that? Well, it's muddy waters, isn't it? Like you said, it's quite divisive. It's not. It's not really divisive. It's not. No one who's being honest thinks that they're linked to any political anything. Everyone knows why they're doing it. It's very simple, like you said, Jay. It's so that we can stop people getting racially abused. That is it. That's it. It's that no one honestly thinks it's any more than that. But what they do is they try to make it, well, it's very complex. It's a complex situation. Are you tied to this organization? Are you affiliated with this political movement? No. And they aren't. You're just trying to confuse everything so you can put down something you don't like in the first place.
Yeah. Do you think...
So sorry, it's just so fucking ridiculous as well to claim that a load of footballers, and I don't begrudge them, that earn around 200 grand a week are all Marxists. They're all they've all got these multi-million-pound boot deals and fucking flogging. Harry Maguire was flogging tacos the day after we got knocked out. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, they're all Marxists then. Well, they're not. Yeah. They're obviously not. They couldn't be further from Marxism if they fucking tried.
Wait. Were the Cuban tacos?
They were Fidel Castro tacos.
Do you think that in some perverse way, England getting beat and that reaction happening with the racists showing their head and justifying, not that it needed any justification of them doing the knee, but just to sort of show to a lot of people that said it was the wrong thing to do. Can you see a good thing from this? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it didn't have to happen, obviously. And I wish I didn't have to have these conversations with you guys, and to a lesser extent with not with all my kids, but with my eldest, because she's sort of old enough to realise what's going on and watches the news and stuff. Why is everyone at Marcus Rashford's mural? What's going down there? And it, well, even Max, my lad, was asking about it, to be fair. I wish we didn't have to have these conversations and keep having them. And, it's been going on for years, obviously. But I think that there are a lot of positives. Joe, you mentioned there, you look at the amount of people that not just at the time were showing love towards the players and, being positive about them, but since what's happened with the racist abuse, have come out and condemned it, come out and tried to show the likes of Rashford, Saka, and Sancho, how much they are loved and respected, and how courageous it was to take a penalty in such a high pressure game as well. Then maybe there is a positive from it. It's just, it's that whole sort of thing of, even though it might be worth it when you get to the end of it, the journey there is sickening, because it's horrible to have to sort of see these things, explain them, and just hear the same old arguments. We had it in 2012 with Ashley Young and Ashley Cole. I know racism's obviously been going on since fucking the dawn of time, but when we got knocked out of penalties to Italy, Ashley Young and Ashley Cole got a load of racist abuse. We're in 9 years later and nothing's changed. And it's the same, Scotty, I think you called it inevitable. It's coming. As soon as Marcus Rashford misses that penalty, people have almost got it in fucking drafts to send, you know what I mean? And that's the sad thing about it all.
I think, like you said, it's almost put the whole movement and this thing that started during lockdown, the taking the knee. No one was in the stadium. Then we saw people come back, and again, seemingly the majority of people supported it, but there was a pretty hefty number of people booing it. We had the whole sort of booing angle, like you said before. Priti Patel saying it's people's right to boo. Then we almost went on this sort of mystical and mythical journey through the Euros, where these players were sort of being deified as we went along, where everything became bigger and bigger and bigger, and 66 and Grandad's coming out for the interview and all this, and it became like these superheroes on the pitch. And then, like you said, for it to end the way it did, it sort of put the closing bracket on this section of football and the political, or not political, like I said, Jay, but sort of focusing on this issue. It kind of put it in a package where you can say, actually, for a while we could almost, or people could almost convince themselves, look, these are black players playing. They're not getting any abuse because they're winning and because people are angry towards them. People that, these dickheads that are going to do that sort of thing. It kind of reinforced that thing of there's still a long way to go here. And anyone who's sort of convinced themselves that, everything had been put behind us and there's no need for this and there is no racism in this country, there is no systemic this, there is no any of that, it kind of reinforced the fact that actually all of this has been for a reason and this needs to be a sort of start of another push rather than going, look, we won the Euros, the world is perfect, no one's a racist, England's beautiful. And there would have been some of that where it's, this multicultural team and look how the country embraced them. Well, they embraced them until they lost. And I think it's good almost to maybe see that sort of this isn't over and those people do still exist.
Yeah, because we're having this conversation now, but the more important conversations are happening at Downing Street because they have to talk about it now, and that doesn't happen if them penalties aren't missed and England win the Euros, because it's got to be the best thing, because they've got to move now, because I know a lot of the people that there are members of the Tory Parliament who are saying we can't be having these culture wars anymore and actually pushing back against Priti Patel to stand down from her position.
That's because it does them no favours, though. I mean, if you look at, I don't want to look at Twitter as just an example, but I mean, Tyrone Mings is tweeting the impact that had over Priti Patel. She's not doing her party or herself any favours by saying that, because I don't think many people agree with it. And Jay, I'm interested in your opinion on this actually, because I saw Dotson from 5 Live actually after the game. He came out and he said that he thought that black players should refuse to play for England because England almost doesn't deserve them, and they should go back to sort of play for the idea that they should play for Jamaica or Nigeria or their country of their sort of descendants instead, because they'd sort of treat them with more respect. And I'm sort of wondering what's the next step from taking the knee, because people have been doing it and the impact it's had, it's probably started a discussion, but the long-term de facto segregation and de facto discrimination still exists, even though people are doing it.
I'd go the other way around, and I think I think that these players are English. I wouldn't play for Jamaica. I could qualify, but I wouldn't. I've never even been there because I'm English. I was born in England. My parents were born in England. It's only you have to go back to my grandparents and weren't. And I think that these players, you look at them standing there singing the national anthem. They're proud to play for their country. Marcus Rashford has got a shoulder injury that he's put off having an operation on because he wanted to play for his country. They love playing for his country. And let's not forget, 99.9% of the population of England love them. Do you know what I mean? My kids love seeing the likes of Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho playing for England. And it's sad if you think, well, I can understand the anger where you're like, why don't we just say, right, we're not going to play? But why should they? Why should they not be able to play for their country of birth, the country where they live, and the nationality they are, because of a very small minority of idiots? And I know any minority of racists is still too many, but it is a minority, because it's not like the vast majority of England fans are racist. I don't buy into that idea at all. And I think that, if you work hard and you want to play for your country and you want to represent it, and that's the sort of one of the pinnacles of your career. Tyrone Mings has probably dreamt of playing for England all his life. Do you know what I mean? And he's like gone from non-league to playing for England in a major tournament is a fantastic achievement. Bukayo Saka at 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, playing for his country at a tournament and being, man of the match in one of those games or star of the match, is a fantastic achievement. And why should they go and have to play for a country that, for some of them, yes, you might have relatives and heritage there, but you've got no real sort of, it's not your nationality. You're not Jamaican or, I know that Marcus Rashford has connections to St. Kitts, I think it is, but I don't think necessarily he'd play for that country or he'd identify himself as someone who'd want to play for that country. So I feel like it's almost like, it's a bit for me with the Glazer argument at United, why don't we just stop supporting United? Well, it's our club. It's not theirs. It's ours. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like with England and those players, that's their country. That's the team they want to play for. That's a team that they should be, by rights, able to play for. And why should they let a small minority of morons spoil it for them? So whilst I would respect any player that said, and I'd understand it, and if they said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to just go and fucking take abuse. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go and play. I'd prefer it personally if they didn't, because I don't think they should have to, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree with you. I understand where the anger and that train of thought might come from. But like we all know, this isn't a new phenomenon that's happening with racism in football. And I think if people start doing that, then it's a backward step. And I think that when we've had like icons like Cyril Regis that have gone through all the sort of racism in the terrace and all the black footballers that have gone beforehand, it sort of undoes all the hard work and the pain and torture that they've had to go through, because it's shit now, right? But it's not as bad as it was then. So we are building and building. We're turning around the fucking, a cruise liner. It's going to take a long time.
Do you know what, you make a great point as well, Scotty? Because I've seen some absolutely ridiculous comments and tweets from people over the last couple of weeks, and like I saw someone, I can't remember who it was, saying that in the 70s and 80s we didn't look at players by the colour of their skin and all this, which was a fucking absolute nonsense. Players were getting bananas thrown at them because they were black. So what planet he was living on is fucking beyond me. But even when I was growing up, players playing for United, the likes of Remy Moses, the likes of Paul McGrath, the likes of Paulins, I grew up on a white council estate where a lot of lads, and I used to have fucking all sorts of dramas and fights at one point. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. Started to respect black people more because they were idolising them at the football matches. And you know what I mean? And it did change their mindset for some people, where it's like, how can you be racist towards people and just judge them on, for the fact they're black when you're going and cheering Cyril Regis scoring goals every week? Do you know what I mean? It does sort of, I'm not saying it solves all the problems, but it changes a lot of people's thinking, or starts them to think of, the way they look at black people. And I think that, more division. And also, if you went down that route, you'd be dividing black people against one another as well, because you might have Marcus who says, I'm going to stay and play for England. And then you might have someone else like Saka, or someone who says, well, I'm going to go and play for the country that, my grandparents are from, whatever. And that is just more it's dividing it further, because then you've got, some people could be getting labelled as a sellout, or could be getting labelled as a sort of Uncle Tom type. And we don't need that. Do you know what I mean? What we do.
I still think there's something left over from colonialism, whereby people come here from other countries, they work hard, and then when they miss a penalty, not everyone, but a proportion of people racially abuses them, when it's quite similar in a lot of ways to immigrants that came here and had a similar sort of reception from certain people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Joe hit the nail on the head when you were saying, we kept winning and everything was great. Do you know what I mean? And it was like people that and I hate name checking him, but I will. Again, I've blocked him. He's another dickhead. Lawrence Fox, who was like, they're all woke crybabies. And then when we got to the final, did this fucking thread of, I got it wrong, I'm sorry, I'm a dickhead. Even though he was still having a dig about taking the knee, because he realised everyone is behind this team. Everyone loves this team. This team is, if it wins the fucking final, everyone who was against it is going to be made to look like a bigger twat than they already are. And then as soon as we lose, he's back to his, they deserve to, maybe they spend more time practicing penalties. Do you know what I mean? And it shows you that it was a sort of false narrative that everything was rosy, because we just kept winning. And that's not how it works. Obviously, it doesn't work in certainly not with England and football, but it doesn't work in life. You can't just respect people as long as they're good. And that's one thing that sort of annoyed me a little bit. And it's difficult because it's so difficult with the language you use, because you can never get it right sometimes. Do you know what I mean? But there is a point, and I get where people are coming from when I see this point made at time and time again. You shouldn't have to be good at something to not be racially abused. You shouldn't have to be a mint footballer or feed starving children to not get racist shit. No matter, you can be a cunt and still not get racist abuse. Do you know what I mean? There's no. Sometimes it became that narrative of like, you shouldn't racially abuse them because they're good at football. Which even sometimes I've tweeted things that can be read like that, and I don't mean it like that. Do you know what I mean? What I'm trying to get the point across, I think what everyone's trying to say is, these guys are our heroes. These guys are doing the best for our country and making our lives better. We should be admiring them, not racially abusing them. The idea isn't that because they're good at football, they shouldn't be racially abused. That's not what I think anyone's trying to say.
It's like the racists have got like a credit score. What's he done? Wait,
he scored the other week. He scored the other week. Get him off the list.
Don't racially abuse him. Racially abuse him instead. Come on. We talked about this. Yeah, it's mad. Absolutely.
What do you make of the guy that was that filmed himself booing the England players taking the knee? What do you think he's doing at the minute?
He's probably petitioning the courts to see his kids again. To be honest with you, it's probably on the phone with his missus saying, "Listen, come on, just every other weekend, supervise me." We spoke about this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. That was just ridiculously bad in a whole fucking sea of some stupid things we saw in terms of reactions to people taking the knee. Booing your television was just a complete new low point for me. Fucking hell.
Yeah, he's probably having a crafty wank somewhere. I'm trying to find the "Have I Got News for You" tweet because they've taken it down after so many people have had a go at them about it. But it was something along the lines of
I might have this actually.
I've still got. Is it footballers are trying to stop racists going to the stadium, ban racists from the stadium, but clubs are worried because there won't be any more than 12 people in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you just read that, Scotty? Sorry, mate. No,
I've just like ad-libbed.
All right. I'm trying to see because sometimes when I do it on my phone, so have I got news for you? Because when they delete it, it still stays on your phone for a little while. So the tweet it's pretty much what you said verbatim. It's amid calls to ban racist football fans from grounds indefinitely, clubs argue they struggle to survive with attendances of 12. So, the lols on that joke. Very good.
Yeah, and it's backfired massively. Do you think there's a class issue in football, Joe, in terms of a punching down? Because that just reeked of some sort of Etonian who was running the Twitter handle for "Have I Got News for You?"
Yeah, well, there definitely isn't there. They're an easy target, football fans especially, but football in general. Like the way that politicians came out at the start of the pandemic going, these footballers need to give their wages away, not bankers and heads of businesses that earn 10 to 1,000 times what a footballer earns. 12 million quid a year is a lot of money, but it's not that much for hedge fund managers or multi-billionaire or multi-billion-dollar corporations that don't pay any taxes. It's a lot less than they earn, and there's plenty of people earning a few million quid a year that don't get called out by politicians and people like that. So I think it's always been an easy target because it's theoretically at least a working class sport. In terms of that, I think that's a shit tweet, innit? I think that's a shit tweet, and more than anything else, it's hypocritical. And I think you tweeted, didn't you, Jay? And I don't know if you're going to mention this, but about some of the guests and hosts they've had on there, they wouldn't do too well without them either. So. Yeah. I just think it's just a shit tweet, and probably best that they deleted it. But there's definitely it does sort of capture and point out again that kind of you can sort of say what you want about football fans because they're just people who go to work and go to football and they're all dickheads and they're all racist. Well, that's not really the case, and I think too many people think like that and think the same about footballers as well. So yeah, I do think it points that out.
You saw it as well. Some people saying, well, rugby fans and cricket fans or horse racing, people go, oh, never behave like that. It's always football fans. And they always towel football fans with the same brushes, but all these sort of skinheads that attack people and cause trouble all the time and everything. And like, there was a piece a couple of weeks back that I was reading in the Times that was arguing that rugby was somehow morally superior to football because it didn't have the same violence and stuff. And it's just drivel.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's it. It's just drivel. And I think... Go on, Joe. Go on.
I've been to the horse racing. I've seen the people that go there. The only reason that they don't speak up on Twitter is because you can't racially abuse a horse. That's the only reason they don't seem like that. Trust me, they're no superior to anyone.
Yeah, I've been to Haydock on fucking Ladies' Day, mate, and it's just fucking kicking shit out of each other. It's fucking brutal,
mate. Yeah, I've personally think Have I Got News for You just lost its way anyway. I've tried to watch it a couple of times and I just think, I used to like it years ago, but it's just gone to the dogs a little bit. And, that tweet is just so far wide of the mark. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know what they were thinking.
It's just not funny, is it?
No, it's just, you can, like you saying, Joe, it's a shit tweet and you can sort of forgive edgy comedy, if you want to call it that, if it's funny. Do you know what I mean? It's like that other pillock who got
they got banned.
Yeah, I don't even know his name. I can't remember. And I don't need to know it. I think you'll know him on about. No, well, I think he's been. Yeah.
I know the one. Yeah.
Andrew, I can't remember. I might be getting his name wrong.
I know what you mean.
He was basically saying that all the players who scored were white, and that shows that black people can't take penalties or something. Just trying to be funny, not being funny, just being racist. And he was due to play in a load of pubs across the country. Who've cancelled on him. since he did it, and I just think, yeah, you know what I mean. It's not it's not funny, and B, it's crossing a line you don't really need to be crossing.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go, let's talk about Mr. Branson that took to space before the England game. Anyone impressed that a billionaire who was asking for the government for handouts last year to pay his fucking staff has taken to the stars? Joe?
I was just going to say, I just loved that because it was on the same day as England versus Italy. No one was asked. It was like, I'm in space. Yeah, no one cares, mate.
Also, loads of people have gone to space. It's not like he went to the sun, is it? He went just, the edge of space, where like all of our internet comes from and where loads of astronauts go all the time. There's literally an international space station that's got people on it all the time. And just some rich bloke went to space. Of course he did. When you got loads of money, you can go to space. We've been doing that for 60 years. Get over it.
If I wanted to see a broken satellite dish, I'd go to the tip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well said, James. That's comedy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not hard to go to space anymore, is it? We've had Elon Musk shooting shit up into space for the last 2 years. Everyone's doing it. Come on, do something better than that. Where's he gone?
Such old news.
Come back when you've been to the past or the future, not space. Space is boring. Sick of it.
Been there, done that. I don't understand. Like, you've got all that money, and the legacy that you want to leave behind is the fucking failed attempt to fly around the world in a fucking hot air balloon. You bearded prick. And sorry, I was Bob two beardies here, but you know what I mean. Like you could cure diseases. You could, famine and shit like that. Give Marcus Rashford some fucking packed lunch boxes for kids and shit. And that's what you want to do. That's your legacy. It's just minging.
Yeah, rubbish. Just rubbish. And also his little thing was crap and all. He had to use another car to push him along. Not one of them ones where you got a rocket and it just flies by itself into space. He had to have one pull him and go, oh, go on, there you go. Just chuck him into space a little bit. A little pacemaker. Do you know what that annoys me as well when they're doing the marathons and they've got a pacemaker and they've got loads of pacemakers. And you're just like, well, run it yourself or don't run it at all. Same goes for that little Virgin boat that he goes on into space. If you have to have someone else catapult you, it doesn't count. Rubbish.
Yeah. That was like the aviation version of a fucking walking stick, wasn't it, taking him up there?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
I didn't even realise he'd gone. I thought he was going to do it. I didn't realise he'd done it already. I lost interest in this. I just thought,
Virgin Trains. What I was going to say was, right, do you remember the toilet on Virgin Trains that they had that like spoke to people?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
It makes me feel guilty doing what I do in those toilets when it's talking to me. I already feel guilty. Go on.
Since then, I've just been like, no, you're a prick.
Yeah.
That's it. I knew. I was like the whole thing with the pandemic when he was asking for money from the government. It's like, well, you sort of that was the first point of call for me. You're actually a little prick.
Is anyone like buzzing for him?
Nah.
Is anyone like happy or excited or like genuinely like? I've not really been keeping up to speed with this. Is there a sort of a group or a movement or whatever, or a trend of like this is mint? Like almost like. Are they just like in their own little bubble? Yeah, ultra virgins. Are they just like in their own little bubble where they've got like sycophants around them going, "Oh mate, if you got a space, it's gonna be so fucking mint. Everyone's gonna
Tesla away."
Yeah, yeah.
We've got a SpaceX on Tuesday, mate. Come on,
get into these cunts.
I don't think anyone cares because that's the thing. It almost showed how sort of detached he was. Like the fact that he's like, the first billionaire to go into space. Yeah, but you've been sending like Harvard graduates who are actual astronauts to space for ages, and now you want a pat on the back because you've got loads of money, and basically all you risked going to space was cash. Whereas when an astronaut goes to space, they're risking the fact that they're pretty much a genius to get there in the first place, and we're meant to clap and pat you on the back because, well, I risked a bit of cash to go into space. Let alone all these people that we send up and we don't even know their name, who have graduated from some of the best colleges in the country and had to work for 10 years to be an astronaut. Just like, who would care about that? That's not anything to risk. We don't care.
Haven't like dogs and monkeys been to space?
Yeah, Laika the dog.
Yeah,
he went up into space, pressed the pedigree chum button, ejected itself straight out the front of it. Awful.
I think a sausage roll's been to space as well. Seriously.
A sausage roll.
Greg's put a sausage roll into space.
Really?
No, they didn't.
Greg's didn't put a sausage roll to space.
Hey, the first drive-through of Greg's is in Ireland, by the way.
Is it? I thought you were going to say he's in space.
Space.
That'd be good. They'll have Starbucks up there soon. You can bet your life.
Yeah.
His cola tasted of piss as well.
Excuse me?
What?
He said Richard Branson, his cola tasted of piss as well.
Oh, yeah,
Virgin
Cola.
Cola. I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, it's just all grotesque, really, isn't it? It is. When you
think
saw
about it,
it's just horrible.
He's sort of our Trump, isn't he? When you think of all the sort of like Trump Steaks, Trump University, Trump Virgin Cola, Virgin Galactic, but just like put your word on everything.
I'm not sure
and just
Trump
try
had a
loads of
record
stuff
label.
until you make money. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder what songs would be released if Trump had his own record label. Who signed to that?
Fucking some probably neo-Nazi band. To be honest, yeah.
Nice. Probably some dickheads, I bet.
He couldn't even get
John
Rebecca
Lydon.
Ferguson.
He's
Do
a
you remember when he
big
wanted to
Trump
get
supporter.
Rebecca Ferguson to his inauguration? And she said no. Like, the woman who came third in the X Factor 10 years ago didn't want to do it. Like, fucking Biden and Obama had, like, all the best stars on the planet queuing up to perform.
Sanders had the strokes.
Yeah.
Well, he's getting on a bit, isn't he?
And Trump couldn't even get fucking Rebecca Ferguson. I think that says it
Didn't
all.
Springsteen as well say, "Can you not play Born in the USA?" And all my music, can you just not play it? And
There's a few that did that. Yeah, I think like that didn't want him using their music. I can't remember. There's someone else as well whose song he used to use, and ended up using like the Village People.
Doing that dance the whole time, that montage.
There was a theory around that one there that there was a theory like there was somebody who worked for the Trump administration who kept fucking him up by putting the YMCA on all the time. That actually he was is a Democrat and then he was doing it on the sly.
Probably get left with like royalty free CFAX music.
Right, I've been Scotter. That's been Jay, Joe, and James. We're off to try and find some sewing kits to fix James' pocket. But we shall see you next week. Subscribe, tell your friends, and we shall see you next week.